Welcome back to the Trenchless Table, guys. We hope you enjoyed part one. We didn't expect it to go into two parts this time. It's not always going to do that. Obviously, when we sat down here and started talking about the startup of things, we were a little excited about launching this podcast. So obviously went into two parts. We're going to get into now what it took to start an underground construction business, or a couple of them, I guess, from Dustin's standpoint. So we hope you enjoy. So to get into business here and a little back on track, we've been growing like crazy. And that comes with good, bad, and ugly. So Dustin, from your perspective, I'd like to know what a good, bad, and ugly looks like from the growth of a business.
So the good, the bad, and the ugly. So things happen in business, good and bad. You learn more in the bad, in the trying times, than you do in the good times. So when it's good, people get comfortable, they get complacent, and they kind of sort of take their foot off the gas and just let things go. When things start to get tough, all of a sudden we focus and we get really serious and we watch our P's and Q's. So for us, we learn more in the bad. So some of the hardest times that we had was when the economy collapsed back in 07, 08. Ahead of that, we were on track for the collapse, before the economy collapsed, before the housing market recession, depression, whatever it was. So
S&S, or
this was S&S.
You're saying
ART
S&S
started.
what do you mean by that exactly?
So S&S was in business, started in 1999. Had a run up until about 2007, and our world, contracts just started to evaporate. People weren't spending money on construction and building things, and this happened before the economy collapsed. So everybody got caught in the housing bubble of 2000. Well,
2008.
You didn't, probably.
Middle school.
But in the economy restricted, the housing market crashed in 2008. Just before that, S&S hit the skids bad. And this is really kind of a defining moment for us, because I was able to, find faith at that point in time, because I didn't have a mentor or anybody else to have conversations with. So that was a good outcome. But during that time, I went to the bank and I knew that this was coming. I could feel it coming. I didn't know what it was, never been through it, but I was pretty cocky at that time. Went to the bank and said, "What are you going to do? You're going to collapse, and my loans are connected to you." And they said, "We're the bank. We're good." And I said, "No, you're not. You're not going to make it through this, and we needed to get some work done on these loans." And so just having foresight, having that intuition, I don't know where it came from. Wasn't good to be cocky, because then a few weeks later, the key collector from downtown Toledo shows up and, "Hey, let's have a conversation." So we had a conversation with him, and surprisingly, at the end of the conversation, he allowed us to survive. And it was partially because he heard the story about how we were just caught up in the down cycle of jobs bidding. We were being responsible. We were paying attention. I was watching every dollar. I knew that we had a guy that had bought a $1 air freshener, a little Christmas tree air freshener. And I was watching the books so close that I saw that, and I had him pay it back. And I knew that wasn't needed to keep the operation going. Okay, it's $1, no big deal. But that's how tight we were watching the budget and watching what we were doing. It was circumstantial. And so because the bank at that point in time didn't want to work with us, the key collector, the special assets guy, shows up, and he was ready to lock us out of the doors that day and say, "Find a ride, walk home. I'm keeping the keys." So at that point in time, I had a few rentals, had a house, was engaged to be married. And in this time frame, I had to sit down with my wife and say, wife, and say, we're about to lose everything. Rentals are gone, the house is gone, the business is gone. And those were really tough times, right? So you learn the most when it's hard. So those are pretty bad times, pretty ugly times. Didn't sleep for about a month at that point in time. And middle of the night, couldn't sleep, threw my hands up, said, God, if you're here, if you're real, I'm in. And first time I fell asleep in a month and slept like a baby, and things started to work out. What it was I had to stop being in control. I had to stop with, hey, don't be cocky, don't be arrogant. You're part of the problem, so become part of the solution. Trust in what's going on, trust the process here. And then being in faith at that point in time, I was always a believer, but I was never really a follower. And so I think that was a pivotal point. How does that transcend into business? It all started to work out. And I can't attribute to anything else other than that at that time when it started to work out.
To poke a hole in that, it's not a magic pill. You changed,
I changed.
which enabled XYZ to follow suit.
Correct.
Yeah.
I had a heart change, which changed how I perceived the importance of people. And that's really kind of when I probably figured out my life goal is growing people through all that. And so the hard times make you better. That was a really difficult time. It wasn't easy right afterwards. It didn't just magically happen to get better. It was still hard. So we went through months and months of dealing with special assets. Actually ended up becoming friends with a guy. Most people don't become friends with special assets. And started getting along really well. We had a good relationship. He's been here just checking in on us since then just to see how things are going, so we stay in touch. But afterwards, the bank, one large national bank, I don't want to say the name on camera here, but he comes to me one day and says, hey, we need to have a meeting. I said, okay, that's fine. Let's have a meeting. We've had lots of meetings. He gets out to the shop, at the old shop out on County Road 17, and he says, you got to go. What do you mean I got to go? He said, you don't fit in the bank any longer. I said, we've been in this process with you for 2-3 years now. We didn't pay anything on our loans except interest. We made what we could payments and interest. We've got everything back on track. We've paid off a massive amount of debt. Now you're telling me I got to go? You're calling my loans? Yeah, you don't fit the bank anymore. You got to go.
You're fired.
We got fired. We got kicked out of the bank. After 3 years of them working with us, they said, you got to go.
Sayonara.
So again, right, tailspin. You get back and, oh, now I'm worried again. What am I going to do? How am I going to find another bank to take us? Because we just got fired from this bank. So
Scarlet letter.
all of a sudden, history starts repeating itself. Tough times always happen, and you've got to figure out how to get through those rough waters. We found a bank, told the story, showed them what was going on. They said, why would they make you go? I said, I don't know. Well, come on over here. We'll take you. So it worked out. Everything was good. But it really got us focused on people. At that point in time, we had maybe 20 employees. And the good side of it is it wasn't just 20 people, but then there's families. There's 20 families, not just 20 people, right? So maybe 30, 35 when you start talking about spouses and kids and people that it impacted. And so we really got to be focused on the people, because we may have 100 people running around here, but we're impacting 300-400 people when you start to look at the lineage of what these jobs provide. And so that's the good, right? I hope at the end of this, people believe that we've helped them in some way, helped them be successful in their life, in their marriage, had conversations where, hey, they're coming into my office, we're having a conversation about something they're struggling with, we help them get over whatever that thing is. But when you start to deal with people and you get on a level with them where they trust you and you can help them do good, that's really cool. That's fun. That's what I enjoy about business.
Yeah, and without those bad times, you don't even know what good times feel like. That's what I always look at with bad situations. Is I tell my kids that all the time. You might feel bad now, but that's just so that you know what good feels like.
Absolutely. In the good times, they kind of make people soft. And I don't love the bad times. I don't love the hard work that it takes to get dug out of those problems. Nobody enjoys it, but it does help you appreciate the good times more. And like I said, when things are good, people get soft. They get a little bit lazy. They don't keep the gas down. You lose focus on some stuff. That's where you course correct when things are good. And so, well, I think we've learned through all of this 26 years in business is course correct when it's good, be gentle when it's hard, and always keep the gas pedal down.
So how do you do that though when we're growing rapidly? I would say rapidly. I mean, not like a tech company rapidly, but for a construction industry rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
How do you maintain things like still feeling like a small company to your customers, maintaining quality, those types of things? How do you do that with rapid growth?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Some days I don't know that we've always hit the mark on that. Sometimes it's the course correction. It goes back to that. What is our expectations? What's our core values? How are we ingraining the core values of being driven into, and maybe we're not saying it every day, but that's really how we've been successful. And maybe people don't realize why those are important, but that's the North Star. So when you go back and you look at how do you make it feel like a small company? One, you got to have a heartbeat and care about people. And I think that's one of the things that no matter where you're at in this business, in leadership, that's kind of a core staple. It's not a core value, but I truly believe that inside of these walls, people care about people. And if they don't fit the culture. And so then by caring about people, and it's not a soft, mushy thing. It's I just want people to be successful. I really, truly do. But I also think that when you care about people, the people take care of everything else. So if you can take care of people, they take care of profits, they take care of revenue, they take care of problems. We just got to take care of them. I don't know if that's a silver bullet or the exact science recipe, but it seems to be working.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out what the exact recipe is supposed to be in those things. And you alluded to it a little bit earlier. Even when there's good times, there's going to be more bad times. Now that we're growing, we see more safety training needed, things like that. Mm-hmm. Personnel issues. When you go from small company, family-owned company, a lot of times everybody has access to everybody at all times.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing to overcome when you're at that hurdle right now where it's like, okay, well, we have these people in place and we have to now run problems or solutions through the right channels.
Yeah. So that's happened a lot recently. And the end of the year last year, you've been here 2 years now, Cole, right? And so from when you came on board till now, we've probably added, 10 in management, I suppose. Like we've been heavy in the management end, trying to right size what we're doing so that we had the right people in the right seats. And so that's been a big change and evolution since you've came on board. And it just continues to, I don't know if it's just continue to restructure. I don't really know how to do this, never worked for anybody. So I think we got to a certain size where we just did it by grit and brute force. And then we had to start hiring people that had those skill sets to get us to that next level. And that's kind of where we're headed now and why all of this evolution is happening.
I would reframe what you said into talent. You think of the sales staff from an ART perspective. Sales staff was super knowledgeable, super strong, from both a field application and a sales application, and just relied on that talent. Because I remember getting here from an outsider's perspective, and then getting here, and I was like, man, things move kind of slow here. What is going on? This isn't what I expected. Now, fast forward maybe 8 months from hire date when things started to really change, and now we're here 2 years in, and now it's like, oh, things could go back to how slow it was. Mm-hmm. Not like I'm wishing anything to really change. I laugh at how I perceived it in the moment of, man, things move really slow around here. It's really laid back. This is great. Understanding that there was a culmination, there was a climax that was about to happen, a resolution to the story, that things were about to really ramp up and another chapter was about to open up, and that's where we're at now, a new chapter of, like you said, 10 new hires, multiple management positions being held by sub 25-year-olds. So there's that growing people part of it that now is not. We use a bad connotation of in any workforce saying babysitting. You hear it in a factory, you hear it out in fields, whatever. That's not what we're doing, but we do have a young workforce that are very capable, but also worthy of being poured into, worthy of the
Coaching.
Position, coached. And that's the season that we're in. But also, they're still young.
They are.
And so there's that piece of the puzzle. What I'm getting to is, what's been the biggest thing you've learned or you've had to kind of release in the midst of this new chapter of growth with a younger generation kind of running a majority or a high percentage of what goes on here?
Mm-hmm. Oh, man, there's been a lot. I think last year we restructured absolutely everything. It seems like we restructured the sales department, restructured the project management, brought project managers on board to run point on all of the projects. And then in transition for S&S, getting from Dad to myself and Christy for ownership of both advanced rehabilitation technology and S&S directional boring. Those transitions, we've kind of just restructured everything. And so for me, with 3 companies, I'm learning I'm not good at keeping up with all 3 because I can't remember what I was supposed to do at 7 o'clock after having 3 other conversations about different companies. And so putting people in place, getting them in the right seat of the bus, letting them lead and run, and course correct is really kind of my primary focus. Operations day to day, that's all handled by other people, which has relieved me to just do visionary work now, where I can just go find new opportunities and poke holes in our own processes from a leadership perspective where, hey, maybe we need to change something, add some people, do a little growth. Still learning because some days I don't even know what I'm supposed to do.
We want to thank our channel sponsor, Obic Products. Is your infrastructure leaking profits or, well, leaking anything? Obic Products delivers leak stop and linings that last. Obic's spray-applied, fast-curing polyurea protects water and wastewater systems. From manholes to massive tanks, if you're looking for a solution that will last for generations and is backed by a 10-year warranty, visit obicproducts.com. Once again, that's obicproducts.com. So I think we've covered a lot in business today.
Absolutely.
I do, before we sign off, I do want to talk a little bit about, since we did mention, I think part of what we should do is talk about the world, what's kind of going on right now. And you sit in a pretty unique seat, so I'm going to hit you with a question that I hope you have some insight on, because being part of the local community, you are part of a couple of different organizations, and one in particular, you sit on the school board. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to ask, because Donald Trump is signing to kind of dismantle the education, the Department of Education.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked into that? Does it look like it's going to impact local education at all?
So I think it's too early to tell for sure what really is going to happen. I think it's easy to jump on the bandwagon and say the world's on fire or this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So from my vantage point right now, I think we all just pump the brakes and see what happens. When he says dismantle the Department of Education, what we don't understand is all of the other stuff that's stealing money from that bucket. And people think it's going to ruin the educational system. Well, quite frankly, I've seen my kids do math, and I think somebody along the way has ruined the educational system prior to this.
I wish I had the data. Because before, and this is rough numbers, but before the Department of Education in like 1989 or whenever it was started, we were in the top, just say 25 in the world in test scores, or maybe it was math.
Mm-hmm.
Since the Department of Education to today's scores, we're light years in a worse tracking and worse trending direction. Now, there's other variables, of course, that go into that. I'm not naive to that fact, but it plays a role.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's got their hand in the bucket. And so if everybody's hand's in the bucket, maybe the best thing is let's dismantle it. Let's send that bucket of money to say, hey, we're going to send the state X dollars. Why is the federal government dictating how we're educating our kids? I don't really think that's originally what their job was destined for. So I think it could be a good thing if we just embrace it, wait and see. Everything he's doing is going to be a bit painful for a minute. We have to just realize that changes either direction are painful. We just need the new rules. Once everybody knows the new rules, we'll figure it out. That's what business people do. That's what we do in education. Teachers, the rules change on them all the time. They just need to know the new rules, and they'll figure it out. They're smart people. They're still going to educate our kids, and they're still going to help raise and mold the future leaders of the world. But we're always struggling financially in the schools. And then we come out and say, hey, taxpayers, we need more money, called levies. Nobody likes to go out for a levy, and nobody likes to pay more money in taxes. And so if there wasn't so many missing dollars happening in all of these buckets, maybe we actually can fund education and pay our teachers what they really should be paid with the tools that they need to educate future leaders and move back up the scale. People used to flock to the United States for education, and maybe some still do from foreign countries, but those people are also taking that education and going back home. A lot of them aren't staying here. There's probably a statistic that tells us how many people are actually leaving. And so we leave the brain drain. We come over, we educate them, they go home. How do we get those people to stay? Why aren't they staying? And so I look forward to it. I look forward to all the changes that are happening, good and bad. We'll figure it out. That's what business people do. So it'll be painful. It'll be difficult. But on this piece of the puzzle, we pump the brakes. We haven't had any of these conversations that anybody's sharing any concern with me at this point since it's all started to come out. So I think maybe people already know that it's going to be good or bad. I don't know. But nobody's had that conversation with me yet. So pump the brakes.
That was just I think that was the main news line that I saw today on lunch was he's signing the executive order today. And I will say, the one news outlet that I read was not super biased, which was nice. They were saying basically what this does is it puts it back on the state level.
Yep.
And I've never really understood, I have a connection to the school system as well with my wife teaching, and I've never understood why they put people in those seats like Linda McMahon, who was never a teacher or, doesn't understand. I always thought it would be kind of interesting if they literally just did a draft of teachers from maybe you take 4 sections of the United States and create a group of 4 teachers. And that becomes your leadership for national level or even state level development programs for education, because those are the people that are going to end up using it. The actual teachers are the ones that are going to end up using it. So I'm excited for them dumping the bucket. Like you said, maybe too many hands are in the bucket. Let's dump it. Let's rebuild it.
Yeah.
Let's put people in place.
It gives freedom to do things like you just said. Like it gives freedom to what has actually worked, and it's probably a small percentage of what actually goes on between a day of 8 to 2:45 of what actually truly works. And elephant in the room, kids are pretty different today than even when I went to school or generations before and the generations that are currently teaching. Then you throw in a wrench of they also can't pay attention further than 7 seconds or look up and make eye contact for longer than 7 seconds. How do we be effective with what we have now? So if we're the analogy of dumping the bucket and refilling it up, dump the freaking bucket and fill it up so there's no holes in it. Make it make sense. It's like if we were consistently losing money month after month and we never changed anything in business. It wouldn't make sense here and it wouldn't fly. It's maybe it's not the right move. I don't know, but a move has to be made. Right? That's what we're all kind of dancing around, is a move has to be made. If this is a move, great. Let's see where it goes. And also, we're all in the freaking thing together, right? It's not like, oh, my kid's this, your kid's that. If at the federal level, the Department of Education reaches their arm around everything. So if it goes back to the state, we can all have a bigger voice. Like you said, dollars can get exchanged perhaps more effectively, if that's the theme of what I'm saying. Dump the freaking bucket.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at like people that are homeschooled or they're going to these online only schools, like if you look at the amount of time that our kids are in school and being, sometimes it's just entertained, right? You look at the homeschool or the online school, it gets done fast. I'm not built for that. I love our public education. I appreciate our teachers and our staff and the people that educate my kids because I'm not built for it. But there is a lot of time that is built in for other stuff, right? It just goes back to, do we need kids to go to school to college or go to the trades? I think we've gotten a long ways away from teaching home ec and shop class and FAA FFA, not FFA, no, FAA, it's FFA. But we've gotten away from those things. And so we need to bring some of that back and use dollars to put career tech centers back in on every single school where they learn basics of how to read a tape measure and how to make a plate of cookies and just life skills. Not that the education system that's the sole purpose of it, but there's time, and unfortunately, all of our kids are learning to take tests. They're getting educated to pass the test, and I don't always know that translates into how are we using this information as retention. It's on to the next thing, on to the next thing. Oh, we got this state test coming up. We got to pass the test.
And I will say, at the younger levels, there's not even time to do the basics of caring about the kid anymore.
Yep.
It's a learn and purge situation.
Yep.
I think it's crazy. Teachers are graded based on test scores and things like that now. And even in Bryan, I think it's insane to me that the teachers will teach, and then we go to spring break, and then the week we come back from spring break, their testing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember when you were in school, but for me to remember a concept or something for a week of no school, no structure, no nothing, and some of these kids in Bryan go back to nothing.
That hasn't changed for me still today.
Right,
I still need to stay on task or I will forget.
Yeah, so it's not set up for success whatsoever on a teaching side. And I get to hear a little bit about the other side of it too. So I enjoy hearing both sides. I wish there was more time for teachers, especially at the younger level, to care about their kids. The reason that my wife has been successful in her position is because she takes the extra time to care. I mean, we make time to go to fourth grade sporting events to see those kids play. And I think that matters to them. And so then they try harder for that class in particular. I wish it was set up in a way that up until 6th, 7th grade, maybe, that there was that time that teachers could just be teachers like we used to remember them.
Yeah. A lot of things have changed. And the biggest part about it is we have so many, it's our podcast. We say whatever the heck we want, right?
We can.
The reality is fatherless homes is the biggest pandemic in the world right now, right? Single moms, single parenting. It takes a mother's love and a father's hand to raise kids these days, and they both need both. And a lot of times they're not getting it. And so these younger kids, they're moldable, it's Play-Doh. They need to be molded. And so, but they need guidance. They need somebody to care. And it might be the first time that kid is cared for when he gets to school. And the first 2 meals that he eats, well, it might be the only 2 meals that he eats for the day, right? And so there's a lot of issues that these kids are going through at home, and we don't know what all of them are. And so there's a lot of things wrapped up into all of this that, one, our teaching staff, we'll go into negotiation next year and we'll have to negotiate new contracts, but that's what we do. And I wish we could pay them 10x what they get paid now. It just isn't feasible, right? Our income, we run on taxes and income from people's money, but our teachers should be paid more. I do believe that. There's just not enough income coming in. So maybe if we dump the bucket and get the stuff out of your original question, when we take it out of the federal hands and it goes to the state level, maybe the funding changes and we get the funding that all schools need to stop asking for more from the taxpayers, putting burden on them. So then maybe they can love their kids because they don't have to have 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And then maybe the parents are in the home loving their own kids again.
And, not just fatherless. There's a lot of kids that are raised by grandparents now, too.
It's sad.
And grandparents don't even get to be grandparents.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. That's in our community, Bryan, Ohio, it's a small town. A lot of people think, well, it's easier. It's easier for them. And it's not always, because there's like a microscope. In bigger cities, a lot of stuff goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
But here, everything's under a microscope.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see change on that front, because I'd love to have kids be kids again and go to school because it's fun. When my 3rd grader has anxiety about testing, that drives me up the wall, because in the grand scheme of things, do I think a 3rd grade test matters about her life? No. Do I think she's going to be successful? I have no idea, to be honest, with that one.
Yeah.
She's my wild card.
Yeah.
But I think she's going to do great things. And so I just, it's interesting to see what's going to happen, I think.
I have a 7th grader.
Yeah.
And she always gives me the line that none of this stuff matters. I don't even care what I'm learning about all this stuff. And I try and look at her reaction when I kind of flip the script on her and say, I agree. And she maybe looks up from her phone for long enough to have a conversation. But I say, but what does matter is you figuring out how to get things done. Mm-hmm. I don't care what the things are. Right now, the things might not be exactly what you think are helpful or valuable or even fun. But what is valuable is what's kind of going on in the background is you learning how to deal with the responsibility of the tasks and the responsibility of deadlines and the responsibility of wife and I don't really check much. We're young parents still figuring things out. Haven't made it to a parent-teacher conference once, I will say. I probably don't plan on going. But what I'm getting to is that's the story, is figuring out how to be successful with what's in front of you. And she kind of gives me the eye roll and, all right. But what I'm getting to is, what if that conversation is, no, actually, I met with your teacher here. I read this in the school newsletter that they're going to start teaching this and this program's going to be that. You need to know this. This stuff matters. This stuff matters. But my answer, I'm not going to lie to her. Mm-hmm. I agree with her. Mm-hmm. And I tell her how she can reframe it, how she can go and attack. And maybe it's been helpful. Who knows? But to your point, what if maybe this dumping of the bucket, the theoretical bucket, allows that opportunity to become a reality in 3 to 5 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually think that's a really good way to sign off today, because I think the whole premise of what we talked about today is figure it out.
Yeah.
Dump the bucket and figure it out.
The freaking bucket.
We have the bucket. Can't even say it when I beep it.
No, it's good stuff. It's been fun. We've covered a lot of ground. I think, hey, we're going to figure it out as we go here. The cool part about it is not that many people are going to listen to the first couple episodes. So if they've listened, then great. We'll get better. Thanks for shining. Thanks for joining us here at the table today. But we look forward to bringing value, because I think the three of us, we truly want to bring value to people. And it's mm-hmm. not just what we do as workers, but outside of this, outside of at home with your kids, with other kids, coaching, teaching, growing people. It doesn't just stop here, and I think that's important. And so thanks for hanging out today, guys. It's fun. It's going to be interesting to see where it all goes, and I love the opportunity to talk about the trades and business and life. So
yeah. Thanks for joining us at the Trenchless Table. We'll see you next time.